Well, hello and welcome to another video from Real Tail Trader. My name's Simon Gray and I'm here having a look at the currency markets bright and early on a Monday morning here in the UK, bank holiday. It's around about 7:45 in the morning. I've been up since 6 looking at what's happened overnight, and quite a lot has happened. So I've been very busy this morning. Just before I get into the charts and the news, quick disclaimer as always, this is not a signaling service. I am not suggesting that you buy or sell or do anything that I'm doing. The idea behind this is it's for information purposes only. The currency markets are a risky place. Before you enter the currency markets or do anything, my recommendation is that you get some advice and get some training. Yeah, this is really, if you're new to the markets, this is perhaps to give you a viewpoint as to how somebody who trades from home does it. If you're more experienced, maybe it's to get some insight and ideas as to how somebody else in the game plays the currency forex game. So let's start with the news. I use Forex Factory for my news. You'll see that quite a lot of news happened overnight. There's talk about stuff going on with Iran, the American US sending carrier strike group and bombers as a warning to Iran. Potentially trade talks are being cancelled between China and the US. What this has done really has to make the market a little bit nervous. And when the market's nervous, what you tend to find is some of the high yielding currencies are dropped, and people tend to divert to things like the Japanese yen, the Swiss franc, and the US dollar to a certain extent, and we'll see that play out in the market when I get into it. In terms of news overnight, we had something out of China, slightly better than expected PMI, production managers index, so that was slightly better news, but I think the news has really dominated what I've woken up to this morning. So let's get into that. So yes, first of all on the pound, I'm going to focus more on the 240 charts, the 4-hour charts. You may remember from Friday's video I was talking about pound strength, and the pound strength being stronger in my assessment than the euro. This played out into my EURGBP short. I talked about that in Friday's video. If you've not seen that, please go back and have a look. It was non-farm payrolls on Friday, and that trade worked out very well for me indeed. I didn't want to trade the cable, pound dollar. I didn't want to trade the euro versus US dollar. I wanted to insulate myself on Friday from US dollar exposure, because with non-farm payrolls, US dollar can be very volatile, and traded on relative strength in my assessment of market conditions that the pound was stronger than the euro, which it turned out to be, and I'll talk about that when we get there. Not a lot going on here in terms of what I'm doing. Here's the first gap. So when there's major news, particularly over a weekend, this is quite unusual, but we've seen it in the forex markets, a number of the pairs I trade. This is the Iran stuff, the China stuff, maybe a kind of hangover from Friday's non-farm payrolls as well. Who knows the exact reason for this, but it's an important thing. The market dropped down into the bottom of the range on the yen. There's been a bounce, but now we're looking to go back down further, potentially. Who knows? I didn't buy it here. The reason I didn't buy it here, the bottom of the range, difficult to exactly see where that might be. I think we've got more of a buy opportunity at 1110, or 110 I should say, 110.00, the even handle. So if I'm going to buy, that's where I'm going to look to buy, not here. Okay, Swiss franc in a trade here. Yeah, this trade is now in profit. I'm heading towards my target. A little bit of a bounce here, although we've had this news at the weekend which has made the markets a little bit nervous. I think there's not been a massive pull towards the Swiss franc. Doesn't surprise me too much, because the US dollar and the Swiss franc are seen as currencies that people will divert to when they're slightly nervous about market conditions. Okay, into the Aussie. Okay, interesting trade this was. I had a buy position on Friday. I was buying off the lows here, bottom of the range trade. What happened is, when I looked at the charts last night at 10 o'clock when the market opened, I've been stopped out of my position. And that happened very, very quickly in a matter of like 5 minutes. So stopped out of the position. I'm always looking to play the market both ways. So while I was a buyer on Friday, I'm now a seller of this pair. And the reason I'm a seller of this pair is that my assessment of the simple moving averages and the daily 10 exponential moving average, they're all pointing in one direction, and that's down. We've got uniform relationship between the 50 simple moving average, the 30 exponential moving average, and the 10 exponential moving average on the 240 chart. We had this Z candle, strong push down, sellers coming in hard here, and this is under the even handle of 0.7000. So I sold here. My rules say that although this was the signal candle, this candle here, which was the 6 a.m. candle, didn't manage to close above it, so this trade is still valid. So I put a market order in here, so I'm selling here, looking to take off half my position here. And at the moment we're around about my my entry point, but we'll see. My stop is 20 points above the signal calendar. We'll see how that plays out. So I had a losing position on the buy side because other signals showed up. There's a close below the bottom of this range. I'm taking the opposite trade now, and let me just change here. And that's an important message for you. If you're watching this, you have to be versatile in the currency markets. Being attached to a certain direction of travel for one currency pair can be dangerous. You've got to look at what price is doing, look at what price is telling you, look at what the market's telling you, and jump along for the ride. That's certainly the way I like to do things. So let me just let this load a little bit, because there's quite a few. There's 10 currency pairs along the bottom here. It takes a little bit of time to load, so let me jump into Euro GBP. As I said earlier, and as I said on my video on Friday, my assessment of market conditions was that the pound was stronger than the euro. I was a seller of the euro, buyer of the pound in relation to this trade, and this is what happened. So I was a seller, I was a seller, and I was a seller here. So I had 3 positions. I was pyramiding into my positions. The market dropped on Friday here. This was non-farm payrolls. Dropped on Friday. We've then had a little bit of a bounce overnight. I've been stopped out. I rolled my stop aggressively in case of a range bottom reversal here. This could be a range bottom reversal, I don't know, or it could be a continuation. What I'm looking to see now is a close below this level, which will give me a clue as to whether this is a range buy or whether this is a continuation to the downside. But it's a very, very profitable trade for me, this one. In terms of my risk, reward to risk on this was about 4 to 1 on this trade. At any one time, my risk was limited to one position. I had 3 positions on ultimately. My risk was limited to one position, and I took a 4 to 1 on that. So a really good trade. Yeah, you get disappointed that I didn't put a limit order on here to buy at the bottom of the range. But it's very difficult to know exactly where this market's going to stop. If I'd have bought it back here and the market continued down here towards the weekly sloping upwards 200 SMA, I'd have kicked myself as well. So you've just got to take what you can get from the market in line with your signals. I've no idea what's going to happen now, so I'm on the sidelines. But a really good trade, great trade to play the non-farm payrolls to insulate myself from US dollar volatility, and that kind of came through. There was buying activity on the pound on Friday, not sure why. Local elections we had here in the UK. There was something I read over the weekend that suggested the local elections had maybe speeded up the government's collaboration with other parties to get the Brexit deal done. But who knows? It's just speculation. Doesn't really matter. Trade the price action. Don't worry about what it says in the news. Pound, Japanese yen. Not a lot going on. I've got a sell order up here. Pound, Swissy. Yeah, this one's quite an interesting position. We're kind of at the top of a range. This range has got 2 levels as I read it. I didn't short this. It's not a clear-cut range top. I like to see this very uniform at the top. So on the sidelines here, what I'll be looking for is a down cross, maybe to play this to the downside. Pound Aussie, I was in and out of this trade over the last couple of weeks. Out of this trade now, probably looking for a down cross here. Yeah, we're at the top level here, testing these highs. We've got the even handle up here. Again, not 100% sure what's going on. We'll wait for a signal to show up. Euro Japanese yen gap here, so a flight to the yen overnight. We've had a bounce back. Now we're getting some downward momentum again. You remember, if you watched some of the earlier videos, I had a really profitable trade on here. I sold up here and got out around about here on a test of my trailing stop. We're now down here again. I don't kick myself, I didn't know we'd get down here. We could have gone all the way back up to the top of the range. So you've got to take what you can from the market in line with your strategy, in line with your signals. Euro Swissy, I'm a seller here on this candle. We've had a little bit of a bounce back up since the gap, but this is a slower, looks to be a slower moving pair, but potentially there's move to the downside here. So this trade is still intact, and I'll wait and see what happens. Euro Aussie. Now this was a trade I set up on the 2nd of May, and this triggered overnight. We gapped up. We triggered my sell limit here. We then came off the range top. This is my range strategy here. So you can see quite a uniform range. Triggered that, came off the top of the range. I'm now looking to take off half my position, just above the daily 200 simple moving average, and we'll see where we get to. So that triggered overnight, which was quite nice to see. Compensated a little bit for the loss I'd taken on my Aussie dollar long. Okay, interesting trade here again. This is a position I'm short on. Swiss franc, Japanese yen. I sold up here. What happened overnight? We gapped down. I took half my position off here. We then had a bounce back here, and now we look to be heading south again, but don't really know. We'll see what happens. So I've still got half the position on, and I'm going to hold this as long as possible. My stop's at break even. I'm going to look to roll this as we move down. When we get a close above this, close below this level, if we do, I'll look to roll the stop. So I'm locking in some more profit there. This was an interesting trade as well that I had on. So I had a buy limit here on my Aussie dollar Japanese yen pair. The reason I had that, we had quite a lot of support here, so I put a buy order here. What happened overnight? We gapped down. My entry and exit pretty much happened instantaneously. So instead of taking a loss for this distance, I took I think a half a point loss, because of the market was moving so fast it couldn't get me in at this level. So it got me in about where my stop was. So losing trade, but didn't really lose any money on this particular trade. And then finally we've got Aussie Swissy. Not a lot going on here, so I'm not really watching this pair too closely. So I've got five trades on. We'll see where we get to, but thought I'd just get this video out. It's one of the reasons that you need to have stops in place, and you need to adhere to those stops. Your first loss is usually your best loss, and as we've seen here with this news overnight, or news over the weekend, doesn't happen. In fact, overnight doesn't happen that often that we see gaps in the forex pairs, but we saw gaps, and I was pretty glad that I was protected. As always, my number one priority is to protect my capital, and I trust in my strategy to deliver me results as we go on. And yeah, glad I had the stops in place, and let's run these profitable positions now to see how long I can hold them, and how much profit I can make. So I'll process this video. As always, if you'd like what you've heard, please hit the subscribe button, and also the notification button, and I will have another video out to you tomorrow. But until then, trade safe, and I'll talk to you again soon.